Oh wait, am I reading? Oh, yeah. Sorry, let me just get that up. When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, driving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence, indeed, will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes, and accordingly, all experience hath shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer, while evils are sufferable, than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is then such government and to provide new guards for their future security, such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies, and such is now the necessity. When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers
What's going on, guys? It's Alex, part of the new alternative media collective, Latitude, and we hate the word collective over here, but
Been hard for you to choke out collective.
oh yeah, collective is probably one of the worst words around in here. I mean, but we're not in this 1984 scene where we ban words, so it's all good. Just
It's all okay.
It's all okay. But yeah, my name's Alex. I'm one of the founders of Latitude. It's an alternative media group that, yeah, group is a better word, I guess you could say. Latitude PHX, Latitude Media, Latitude, it is Latitude, degrees, minutes, hours, whatever you want.
Whatever you want.
The whole aim is to just...
Bring the definition of journalism back to its true form.
Exactly.
Journalistic integrity has been abandoned, and we are here to restore it.
And it all starts with Generation Z. That's where it starts, because as we can see, it looks like Generation Z is going to be the future. So
the most conservative generation yet.
Yes, not just conservative, but also libertarian, which is even better. So
that is an important key to analyze.
Yeah.
Probably the first mainstream libertarian group too.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, we have the what is it going to be, the midterms coming around. 2018 is going to be the first time I vote. First time I vote, and
you excited?
Oh yeah, I'm definitely excited. I mean, when it comes to, here in Arizona, I think it's going to be boring, to be honest with you, just the actual ballot. But
it's going to be McCain, if he is alive then, versus probably Ann Kirkpatrick like usual. Yep. And then Jeff Flake is actually having some competition against Kelly Ward, right?
Yeah. I think
that's who Donald Trump endorsed, right?
Yeah, Kelly Ward.
Frankly, okay. She's so much better than Jeff Flake, okay? Frankly.
So, actually, yeah, Jeff Flake is somebody that we should talk about later on, because I
could get into it on him.
Yeah, he's definitely been he's been fooling around, to say the least.
I mean, he's under a Republican, but I mean, his policies, like, he's not very strict on border control, which is a big one in Arizona, Republicans, basically. But there's a lot that he says that he is, but he doesn't really reflect.
What would you say? Did you say he's establishment or reformed Republican or what?
He's not I don't want to say he's a rhino, but I don't want to say he's establishment either. So I'd probably say he's probably a reform or a progressive Republican. Like, I want to say what Donald Trump coined the phrase during the primary debates. I'm a common sense Republican is what he said. So I'd say that's probably somewhere near where Jeff Flake would land. That's just right.
All right, well, let's get into what do you got? The Facebook stuff that you wanted to bring out? Is that?
Oh yeah, there's one from this group that absolutely gives me cancer every time I see it. We could have sent 130 cargo ships full of aid to Puerto Rico with $32 million in taxpayer dollars Trump has wasted on golf trips. It's from an account called Support Elizabeth Warren on Facebook. Social justice warriors usually share all the stuff because social justice warriors just love Bernie Sanders, Chuck Schumer, and Elizabeth Warren. Pocahontas. So, the thing that makes me mad about this, it's also from Occupy Democrats, so they're stealing it from Occupy Democrats without giving proper credit. But it's the golf thing that bugs me. Like, yeah, I don't like that our presidents go out and they play golf. I would prefer that they just always remain in office and do their thing. But when they don't acknowledge that Obama was playing golf way more than Donald Trump, that's the thing that ticks me off. It's just like, if you're going to acknowledge one, you might as well acknowledge all of them.
Right, it's that whole thing about the idea that, you have people who love one side and people who love the other side, so obviously they bash the opposite side. And
Hmm.
at the end of the day, it's, where I'm coming from, it's like I don't like any of these people, to be honest with you. And I don't like people controlling my lives. I don't like people controlling my lives who want to just go out and play golf, when they're taking a break from controlling my life. So
Yeah,
that's why I don't like any of them. And
yeah.
I honestly, this could go all the way to the philosophical level of, come on, let's just go back to individualism and and rational egoism and stuff like that. But obviously, it's just a stupid thing about golf. So
And I mean, like you and I, we both try and remain as partyless as possible. Like we don't try to affiliate ourselves with
right,
one like specific party. Like we don't consider ourselves libertarians. We don't consider ourselves Republicans. Like we try to get away from that. So you and me, we both very much, or you and I, we both very much try to stay reasonable and just search for the truth in it.
exactly,
Whereas both sides will distort the truth and distort facts to back up their side.
exactly, because even with the Libertarian Party, it's they can be as principled as they want, but they still have a party line to toe. And
Yeah.
they've had their fair share of demagoguery, especially on the social media playing field when it comes to
Oh,
stuff about
100%.
North Korea. They've said very stupid things about North Korea and things that you would just never expect coming from the ideology that they come from. So
Hmm. So I mean, it's just a big. What? All right. So here's a good thing. Do you think that it's more important for us to get rid of parties or like stray from parties, or get us more focused into one group that focuses on truth? What do you think is more important there?
well, what's interesting is you talk about the idea of like one group that comes together that coalesces around truth, which is ideal, but it also sounds like it's predicated on the idea that there is one group, which I would say that it's better to have individuals get as close to the truth as they can rather than a group. But that might be what you mean. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like when like I think that there's a lot of there's a lot of similarities between multiple different groups of people. Like I have a lot of libertarian left friends, and we agree on a ton of things. So why is it that we still have to draw that line between us that we're this way and we're so hard lined on just driving in our facts and driving in our views that way when we both agree on the main overall idea, right? Like we
Right, right.
both understand that Antifa is a violent fascist organization. We just we all can agree on the basic things. So why is it that we stray so far apart?
Right, like I think also this ties back to something that Stefan Molyneux always talks about, which is his own moral theory or his own theory of universal morals or universally preferable behavior, where although it's not preferred universally, it is preferable universally, which means that everybody can pretty much that everybody is capable of preferring life over death or voluntarism over coercion and involuntarism, things like that, where at the root of everyone, if you go up to somebody sane and you ask them, would you condone violence to achieve your ends or whatever?
Mm-hmm.
Most people are going to say, well, no, let's deal things. Well, let's deal with things peaceably and through discourse rather than through coercion and violence. So, although you do have those very fringe groups that I think mostly due to collectivism, they agree with each other that. Again, I can't even say they agree with each other, but I think just the collectivist ideology there is it is okay to use violence to achieve these ends, whether no matter what those ends may be.
Yeah.
That all comes from collectivism, not from the individual. But I think most people, especially in our generation, and they may be on the left side of the libertarian spectrum, or the individualist spectrum, or the right side of the individualist spectrum, just when it comes to social issues and stuff like that, but they still want to achieve their ends through civil discourse without any coercion, which is, I think, what everybody can universally agree on.
Mm-hmm. So I want to kind of change subject here real fast because I saw something that kind of thrown me back into something that haven't talked about in a while. So
All right.
you remember the Flint situation, right? Flint, Michigan.
Yeah, the dirty water, sure.
Mm-hmm. So when did that issue arrive? It's like 2010, right? Or 2011?
Yeah, it actually was earlier on in the the whole grand scheme of things. Yeah, it was earlier than people thought.
So right now I'm looking at an article on Huffington Post. Who would have guessed?
Can I have the link?
Yeah, let me get that sent
Thanks.
over to you real fast. Basically, it says the headline, Flint mayor sends letter to San Juan mayor sharing outrage over Trump. 2010, who was president then? Just give me what was the name of the president then? Barack Obama. All right. What did Barack Obama do for Flint?
To be honest with you, when I was 11 years old, I didn't hear of anything that he did.
Well, all right. So later presidency. It's been when it started rising over the campaign trails last year, when Obama was still in office. What did Obama do?
I couldn't tell you. I haven't followed this issue closely at all.
They didn't do anything.
Well, there you go.
Now, another thing. Do you know by chance what the party is that governs all of Flint, Michigan?
I would assume the Democratic Party.
It is all Democratic Party, and Hillary Clinton ran on the platform saying that white Republicans are the reason to blame for it. All of the people on the Flint, city staff? Not city staff, city council, right?
Right.
They were all white Democrats, I think. Or they were, I'm going to say a horrible phrase that I hate saying, people of color.
Right.
People of color that were also Democrats. So if she's blaming them, she's obviously using white Republicans as a scapegoat, which is really, really stupid for not acknowledging the truth at all. But I love that they're trying to share this outrage, even though all of these problems that are stemming right now come from the past administration. Flint is a dirty water country because your government didn't do anything about it when Obama was president. Now you're trying to use white Republicans as a scapegoat.
Yeah, and of course, if you bring that up, it's completely invalidated. Oh well, what are you talking about? Look at this administration right now not doing anything, and the entire House, Senate, and executive branch is filled with white people and blah blah blah. It's at this point. I mean, I think most people can agree that it's just a non-argument. It's a non-argument filler for the conversation,
Mm-hmm.
and it's at the end of the day, it's just the way that they get the vote in the next election.
Yeah.
So, because their constituents, they know that they're just going to keep voting for him no matter what. And if they say, "Oh yeah, we hate Trump," and their whole district didn't vote for Trump, or their whole district is filled with Democrat voters, then they know that they're going to get it. They can say whatever they want.
Mm-hmm. What's an issue that you've seen that's bugging you lately?
So let's see here. Let me pull this up. Hold on. This is something to do with the debate today on Twitter. Obviously, there's always a hashtag that the guys over at Twitter like at Jack, screw you Jack, I hate you, because you
What's going on today?
Banned Sargon, but so at Jack.
I thought Sargon was already banned.
Yeah, he's been banned, but it's.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah, but I went back on there today and like searched his name randomly and still didn't come up, and it's like, man, feels bad, bro. But so today's whole thing on Twitter was a hashtag that got propelled by somebody over at Twitter, because typically they just take everything off. But it was, what was it called? It was like hands off my birth control or something like that. Hands off my BC.
Hands off my BC. Yeah.
So let me grab that real quick here. It was something by Nancy Pelosi that was just completely stupid. So, well, here we go. This is the best thing I have read today.
Oh, is it her tweet?
If POTUS cared so deeply about the Constitution, he wouldn't have just trampled on a woman's right to health care. Hands off my BC.
Do I need to go and read through the Bill of Rights to show what rights are in there?
I mean, like, seriously though, man, I quoted it, and it's just one of those things that, you know, I am just an all-around shit poster on Twitter, and I don't really care.
I mean, that's how I am on Facebook and stuff. It's
so I just quoted it. I'm like, man, you know what the hell, man. But like, seriously, that's all I had to say. Seriously, because this is just one of those things that we keep seeing coming out of the Bernie Sanders left. I guess Nancy Pelosi's trying to latch onto it too, because the recent backlash of her constituents, over her when she said, I support you, DACA members or whatever, and they said no. They're yelling at her in the crowd, no, you don't, you didn't do that, no, you didn't support us, blah blah blah. It's just hilarious. So I think she's trying to grasp onto that group of voters that or non-voters, because some of them are non-citizens, but yeah, what's up?
I mean, at this point, it's just like there's such a divide between both parties right now. Like the Democrats, there's the moderate left and there's the extreme left. Like there are some Democrats in office that are reasonable, I'd say. Like they aren't insane.
Right.
But there's a growing divide between the heavy government involvement Democrats, like the socialists, like Bernie Sanders, self-declared. Like that's not even a thing that I need to like say, oh, he said some socialist stuff. No, he's like a self-declared socialist at this point.
Yeah, he was a Marxist when he was young.
I think one of my favorite quotes from him is, why is it that in capitalist countries people find it a bad thing that that people line up for bread? Bread lines are a good thing. It shows that the government has food to give to the people, and not that the rich get the food and the poor do not. Free healthcare. There's just that growing divide between those two groups: the insane socialists, the moderates, and then there's the ones on the right. There are the rhinos, which I would even associate Trump in, because he's not exactly doing the most libertarian things lately. I'm still going to be a critic of Trump. I never was entirely a big fan of him. I might have a MAGA hat, but I mean, that's just because of shitposting. Come on.
Exactly.
And then there's the conservative libertarian that I've seen arising more like Rand Paul, Ted Cruz, those kinds of guys. They're the ones actually pushing for what we elected Trump on, that we really wanted to drive home. We really wanted to get rid of Obamacare completely, not just kind of repeal it and still make sure that premiums go up. Like there are those groups that are forming, and it's not and I'd even go as far to say that there are like three groups forming on the right and the Republican side, because there's the like kiss up to Trump, like the what's the majority speaker's name?
Paul Ryan.
Newt Gingrich? No, he's the Speaker of the House. Newt Gingrich?
Majority of the Senate, sorry.
Yeah. The Newt. No, not Newt Gingrich.
Newt is the guy who goes on CNN or whatever.
Who's the dude that's got the weird face? I can't. Why can't I know his name too?
Majority of the Senate is Mitch McConnell, right?
Mitch McConnell. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Mitch
And
McConnell.
the minority
He's
is Pelosi.
yeah. Mitch McConnell, like that group of people, his followers, they've made a little faction too. So I feel like there's three groups coming out of that and two groups coming out of that. Which honestly, I hope that they get rid of the Democrat, they get rid of the Republican, and they establish five new parties. I would honestly love that because then it actually gets people thinking about what their political decisions mean. We aren't voting based on whether there's a D or an R next to their name. It's actually their principles that matter. That's what I would love because it actually gets people thinking, gets the voter thinking. Because we've seen in the last, what, I'd say since 2008, we've seen people voting less and less on policy and principle and more on either uh, making quotas or just voting R or D. That's all we're voting at this point. So
So closer to maybe like the European system of.
not to the European system per se, but just like getting closer to abolishing that two-party system. If we get closer to actually like getting either rid of the two-party system or getting rid of parties, period, I would love that.
Yeah, I mean that's what I've always been for. I think when it comes to our generation and what we saw in the past election, nobody is satisfied with either option or either
Mhm.
party right now. So I mean, we got to come up with something because somebody's got to come up with something because obviously the people that we rely on, and that's the funny part is that everybody hates both parties, but they still, fifty
But they still
percent
support him.
exactly 50% relies on one party, 50% relies on the other party. They're not going to go out of their way to encourage, some guy that they've heard in, like on Dave Rubin or something like Austin Peterson comes on and starts talking about libertarianism or something like that. And, these people who 50% of these people who rely on the Republican Party and their, classic like GOP voters are not going to go out of their way to encourage or, donate to Austin Peterson's campaign or anything. So that's the issue is the reliance on the two-party system and the I guess just deflecting any idea that there is the possibility for more than two parties in the electoral system.
I mean, it makes me sad that Austin Peterson, to even get recognition, has to run as a Republican. But he had a really good point as to why he was. His principles haven't changed. He's just using that to get into office and to spread his word, which is a great thing. I think that's fine. I don't see anything wrong with it. It's sad to me that you have to be an R or a D to get in.
Exactly. Yeah. Um,
And Dave and not Dave, Austin Peterson, he's got great views. A lot that most people can get along with. Like I don't agree with him on the open borders thing that much, but I'm sure if I looked into his reasoning on it, I could either find a way to compromise with him or like find something that I agree with on him. But it's like he's very bipartisan, you could say. He has a lot of appealing features to right wingers and left wingers. The only thing that he doesn't have an appeal from are people that are big government.
right. So does he like the socially left and fiscally right?
Yeah,
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And it seems
Gary
like
Johnson's age-old definition of a libertarian: fiscally conservative, socially liberal.
yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, that's actually if you look through their policy agenda or their platform for the 2016 election, that's what they ran on. Was they actually ran on open borders and um, the legalization of all drugs and all that. So, and those are classical socially left causes. So
Which is actually in a weird way become right leaning causes. Like I've seen more right wingers come to like, yeah, we should legalize marijuana. We should. It's They're coming to the realization that yeah, all these things that we thought were a good idea weren't exactly the best ideas, which I think is a good thing to know when you're wrong, to be able to have the courage to admit, yeah, I guess I wasn't exactly right.
Yeah, like some people call it the new right, some people call it the classical, classical liberal movement, some people call it the free speech movement, whatever you want. They all seem to share those same ideas that are mostly known to be socially left, and again, these people are different from the alt right, and I still don't. I don't want to go into a conversation on the alt right because I think it's obviously a very ambiguous group, and I don't think that it's worthy of discussion because people are just gonna take it out of context and apply some sort of definition to it, even though it can't really be defined. It's an internet movement, so.
I mean, you and I, we aren't alt right at all.
No, in terms of like what their quote unquote leaders, which I don't think they have any leaders because it's an ambiguous movement, but what the people.
Richard Spencer.
Right, sure. Well, let's not even look at the group. Let's look at the individual. I disagree with him on many things, so there you go. I'm gonna leave it at that.
Doesn't altright.com have its like definition on the front page or something like that?
Yeah. See, but like that's the issue too, is that I'm not going to be a classical liberal, and then for the sake of defending my group, which is not even I don't have a group. Like that's the thing. I don't want to tie myself to a group. So if I'm not going to tie myself to a group, I am not going to apply a group definition to the alt-right. I have to look at the individuals who call themselves alt-righters and then just tell you if I agree or disagree. That's the thing. So I just, because I can't call myself like a classical liberal or a libertarian or an individualist and then and then start saying the alt-right is a cancer to society, and so.
I mean, it's not. I disagree with a lot of things, but do I think that everyone should be entitled to their opinion? Yes, 100%. But do I think that just because I think that they should have the right to say it, does that mean that I support them? No, not in any way, shape, or form.
Right. Like, I can say, here's what I can say. I can say this. Alt-right is not a cancer to society, but ethno-nationalism is.
Yeah.
Because I'm talking about the principles, not the individual, or not the group. So, that's where we gotta start. Like, if you wanna, hey, if Antifa really wants to, here's the thing, like, Antifa would have never been what they are today if they took on people like Richard Spencer from a principled point of view and not from a collectivist point of view.
Yeah.
Because to me, that whole thing literally just looks like, that whole thing literally just looks like collectivist versus collectivist. Like that's what it is.
It's
You
all
have,
right, Antifa. It's all a big mishmash of nothingness and things that won't ever better society in any good way.
Like I think there's a big boundary between like nationalism or like civic nationalism and ethno-nationalism.
Yeah, there's nationalists that want like Richard Spencer, white nationalist. He wants to have a nation for white dudes.
Exactly.
And then he goes and compares it to the Israel, and it's just like, oh, yeah, dude, it's not a good one to go for, my man.
Here's the Spencer is actually very articulate in knowing what he's saying. Like
he says it in a very good, convincing way.
Yes, but when he says something like, when he argues against like somebody on Black Lives Matter or somebody who's like we was Kangs or whatever, when he argues against them and says, "What are you talking about? We are arguing the same thing that you guys are arguing. Where it's just for white people, right?" Mm-hmm. He's fundamentally correct. Like that's correct. Like what he's saying there is right. Like he is for a collectivist state,
Yeah, they have
For
very similar. Just replace Black Lives Matter message with white. You'll have Richard Spencer's argument, basically.
exactly, and then from the individualist ideology or the individualist principles, they're both wrong, and they're just fighting. They're tribalistic groups fighting with each other. Then that's
That's
all it
another
is.
thing that is a cancer to society is tribalism, and even Ayn Rand went into some of her nonfiction books. I think it was. She said that tribalism and racism those are uh, those are both synonymous things, and they're both things that should be feared or completely gone away with.
Right, they are both forms of collectivism.
They're both forms of collectivism, and they're stupid things, which I can entirely agree with. But when I come out and say, hey, blacks account for 13% of the population, yet commit 50% of all crime and 80% of all homicides, I'm a racist for acknowledging facts. It's that where I get like a little, not, I don't want to say offended, but I mean like a little confused as to the logic behind it. We both
Right.
agree that racism is a stupid thing. We both agree that racism is something that should either be done. Well, what the hell was that? All right, so we both agree that like me, leftists and I guess, both agree that racism is a bad thing. We both agree, not maybe both agree that facts are a prominent thing, but when we acknowledge them, we can't be afraid to go and look at races. We can't be afraid to make generalizations about certain groups. Like um, for me, going and saying that, like, I can go and acknowledge. Let's see, what's something that whites do?
They
Like, what's a negative thing? I don't know.
they're very bad at dancing to hip hop music.
I will admit as a white guy, because it's factual, that we are very bad at dancing. And as a Mexican, I will also admit that a lot of illegal immigration is Mexicans, because it is. That's just a fact. We can't be afraid to go and say, "Yeah, well, it's just immigration." No, it's not. It's not immigration. It's illegal immigration. It's illegal for you to come across the border and just say, "I'm going to reside here," because that's not how it works.
Right, like the fallacy of generalization is not a fallacy when the facts actually back up for very strong correlation between two things. It's not a fallacy of generalization. So
Yeah,
like if 25% of the population smoked, I can't just come out and say, oh my God, we're all like very bad smokers, and we're all going to get lung cancer. It's like, well, that's a big generalization there. But
yeah.
um, when I say that most people are typically two genders, that's not a generalization.
That's not a generalization. That's factually true, because 90, what is it? 99.07% of the population, or 99.7%, is that it? Is
Right. Yeah, it's something like that.
heterosexual or cisgendered, as the left has coined it.
Well, and the cisgender thing just came around to intensify the idea of labeling people.
So I'm going to propose something to you. So
Yeah.
right now, transgender movement and gay movement, LGBTQ plus seven Batman symbol, that whole movement is it's become a movement now, as to where in the past people have existed like that and everyone has known about, or like people have existed about it and they've gone about their lives with people not really caring much about it, right?
Yep. Roman Republic, Greek times. Yeah.
Then you go into like the bathroom issue. This is something that is being blown completely out of proportion on both sides. There aren't children getting raped in bathrooms. it's something that you can be worried about, but statistically, it's not very common. And then there are the ones that are saying, what's the left's argument to this? That they won't feel properly represented because of the bathrooms, right?
Right. They won't
Also
feel
not very true,
represented.
because um, transgendered people have been getting away with this for years. We're just now shedding light on it to try and get the government involved on it, which is something that we don't really need to do. Because if you look like a woman, if you're acting like a woman, you go into the woman's bathroom and you sit down while you pee, then you should be fine, right?
Right.
But if you just go and say you're a 39-year-old dude and you're just like, oh, one day I just wake up and I decide I want to be a woman today, and you walk into the bathroom, then I'm gonna have a problem with it. But people have been doing this where they go into the bathroom and it's fine. They've been doing that for years, and it's never been a problem.
All right, and yeah, let's go to that whole thing of like appearance, right? Like you were saying, like looking like a woman or looking like a man, right? So,
Caitlyn Jenner does not look like a woman.
right. So pretty botched.
Nor is he a woman.
Right. Yeah, slightly botched there. But the let's split it up here, right? So the facts show that the correlation between gender and sex is around 99%, right? Like that is how strong the correlation is. So we're not going to take that 1% and try to extrapolate that, say that that is the defining thing here. No, it's not. The defining thing is the strong correlation between gender and sex. Okay, so when we look at the difference here, okay, so what is the fine line then? Like, what's the difference, all right, between these two things, gender and sex? Well, the main difference, the main visual difference that is not like biological but is societal, is fashion. And fashion is the only determiner when it comes to like differing between gender and sex, because the correlation is so strong that you must ask, well, what is that thing that is not, that does not tie them together so closely? And that's fashion. That's like the one thing that is, not determined, that how gender is not determined by sex. Gender is also determined by fashion. That's the one outlying thing.
Yeah.
And if people, if there's going to be the idea that, oh, there's 5 million things that play into the difference between gender and sex. No, again, the scientific studies show that there aren't. That, that it is literally, again, 99% correlation to sex, which is sex is gender, or sex is gender, oh my god, here we go. Sex is biologically, it is intrinsically biological, and that the only difference that is non-biological between the two is fashion. And it's like that may sound triggering, right? But I don't care. I don't care what's triggering to you. I mean, like that's the facts. So and that's how it was back in the Greco-Roman times, If a guy looked like if it was a woman who was really a guy, that's just how it was. Because guess what? The fashion determined it. Everything else was biological. So.
Well, I got something to add on to that. We were talking about biology and transgendered people, stuff like that, right? So something that Ben Shapiro brought up pretty recently, he said that this whole thing, the pronoun issue, when someone transitions from a man to a woman, you should call him now she, right? That's something that people do. He had a good point on that. He said, what you're asking me to do is you're asking me to throw out biology just so you can feel catered to. Right. And then he said that would be like me coming to you as a Jewish person saying that, well, everything that you say, now what you have to do is you have to involve God in it because I'm Jewish.
Right.
No, that's not how it works. If I'm a Jew, not everything has to be catered to me because not everyone's a Jew.
Exactly.
Everyone believes in biology. Everyone knows biology is a thing, so you shouldn't have to come up to someone and be like, oh, well, I'm going to throw out biology and call Caitlyn Jenner a she.
Yeah.
Caitlyn Jenner's a he. He can say that he can get a sex change. He can say that he can throw on boobs, throw on a wig, say that he's a woman all he wants. I don't care. It's his life, whatever he wants to do with it. But I am not going to say, oh, well, it looks like he's a she now, because that's not how it works. Biology is a thing. I'm not going to throw out biology just so you can feel catered to. Just like no one should throw out their beliefs just to cater to me because I'm a Jew.
Right. And I think you've probably heard the reasoning that the LGBT community will give you if you say, no, or like, why do you want me to use these pronouns, right? Like, why would you want people to use these? Oftentimes the argument is that it's out of respect, right? But here's the thing about respect. Respect is not something that is just given to people. Just like, like, oh, well, I am just going to respect you now by calling you by this pronoun. Like, how is that respect? Respect is something that's earned after you actually get to know somebody by their character, not by their, their...
Well, Alex.
Yeah. Well,
Alex, I gotta say something. So, do you think that everyone should naturally respect the president?
I don't know. I don't think he needs to be respected.
So you don't think that it's required that American citizens should respect their president of the United States, whoever it may be? Because I mean, I might have disagreed with Obama on a ton of things, thought he was a horrible person, but still had the utmost respect for him. Donald Trump, I agree with him on a little more things, and I still respect him because he's my president.
I mean, if you want to add that exception into it, then it's hard to make it into a principle. But
then it's also like, as a person, I'm not trying to use I'm a decent human being, right. But like, as just people going about their day-to-day lives, do you go up to someone and you're just naturally an asshole to them?
No, but I don't think that's respect. I think that's just tolerance.
So you're saying that we should be tolerant?
It's a difficult thing because
that's what I'm trying to get at. It's a difficult thing to go into the respect.
Right. And that's exactly why it's hard for them to even argue that. Because number one, how can you even tie pronouns to respect? I don't understand that. How is that even how is, respecting somebody by using their correct pronoun when in reality it's like, okay, here's the thing, the differing thing is fashion, okay? So that's the only thing that we can do if I don't know what your biology is, right? So if it's going to be fashion, that's the only thing that we can do here, then, and I use the incorrect pronoun and you correct me, then I might go about, here's the thing, here's where the respect comes in. If you correct me and you go about it in a manner that is like non-violent to me and that I find is, and this is individualistic. If I find your character to be, acceptable and non-violent and, non-coercive or anything like that, voluntary, very peaceful, then yes, I will use the proper pronoun that once you correct me. But you can't expect me to do that first. I think we can agree on that, is that
if I look at you and you look to me like a she, I'll say she, and then if someone says, oh, I'd prefer if you use he.
Right.
Then I can either respectfully say, sure, I'll do that, or respectfully, I decline your offer.
And here's the other thing, too, is if you try to force me to use it, I am not going to use it. That's where I have the... That's where use it.
When it's voluntary, it's fine. When it's forced, hell no.
If somebody says, like, I prefer that you call me this.
Preferences, great.
Right.
That is okay, 100%.
And thank you for correcting me. And it appears that you are a very peaceful person. It's like, I call a man sitting in his office, just like typing away on the computer, is in a very peaceful state. Thank you, Mr. This. It's like, oh yeah, okay, like cool. I called him Mr. Like actually, there's the classic pronoun, right? Like Mr. Simmons. Thank you, Mr. Simmons, for inviting me into your office to discuss this contract or something like that, right?
Mhm.
And it's like, yes, because we've established, a past relationship, for example, that is predicated on a peaceful, let's say, a peaceful discourse, So it's funny to me because it also goes as far as this. If I find you, if I'm like, let's say I'm going to university in like a year or something, right? And I find somebody
You
on
were
campus.
going to university in a year.
Yeah.
You're old.
So I know, man. So if I find somebody, flipping over trash cans and saying that we need to make a law that forces me to call somebody something, and then the next day I see them in class, I'm probably not going to call them by what they prefer to be called.
Mhm.
Because that's not somebody that I can respect. Like, how can I respect somebody that is advocating for force to be used against me? Like, I can't respect that. So no, if you're arguing that I should do it out of respect, well, and I don't respect you because you're gonna try to force me to do something, then I'm not gonna call you something out of respect.
Mhm.
So that's why that argument doesn't really hold up. That you want me to do it out of respect, because I can't always respect you.
Yeah.
And then don't get triggered about it. If it turns out that oh well, you're not a very not a very respectable person.
You want to keep going on the respect thing, because if not, I have something to bring up. That this is the one of the funny things that I was thinking about earlier.
Sure, I think I rambled enough on that.
Okay, so you say a lot of things, and I've gotten used to how you speak. I understand like what you go out and say. I get what you're putting down.
Okay.
So one of the things that you usually say, like, you'll state something, you'll say some reasoning, and then you'll say blah blah blah, like something else about it. One thing that I've noticed that one person that I was just scrolling through Instagram, looking through, I found like a parallel basically, and
Is it a good parallel or is it pretty bad?
No, I think it's
because oftentimes I find that the way I speak is not the way that I wish I spoke, but
no, it's just let me try and get into Instagram somehow. Forgot my password. Great. Let me just give me a second. Type the words above. Great. Here, talk about something else while I'm doing this.
all right. Well, I think things stem from my Twitter feed. Check that out. I posted an Alex Jones meme today.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. What else do we have? Oh yeah, 50 pounds of explosives in the vehicle that the Las Vegas shooter was driving.
I thought it was nitrate. No, ammonium nitrate.
Yeah, or like tannerite or something. Maybe that is ammonium nitrate. Is that?
I think it was ammonium nitrate.
Yeah. Let's see. Oh yeah, this was a good one that I retweeted. For the billionth time, not subsidizing something does not equal denying access to that thing.
Let's see, is this it?
That was a good one.
All right.
Yeah.
So, I found it. Okay, I'll send you the link to this because I think you'll laugh at it when you see who it's by. Then I'll go through and explain it. I just want you to read the caption, and I feel like you might get where I'm coming from. because I think you might find it a little funny. I don't know. Yep. I'll find the one that it made me think of you. It's a tweet from a way long time ago, but it's. Can you see where it kind of like it kind of would remind me of you? So the have you put it up on the thing? We'll get demonetized immediately for sharing something that's on Dan Bilzerian. Dan Bilzerian, please don't kill us. We aren't making money off of this.
So apparently this is how I speak. Wait, what? So this is how I do what? This is how I speak.
This is just like it's similar to how you will say or phrase things. The plan is to do a TV show on me running a weed dispensary open to the public in Vegas. Been in meetings all week. Just the way the shift from something to been in meetings all week, I just feel like that. It just sounds like you. I'll find it. It's from a way long time ago. This is
are you talking about like the how he gets rid of the anything that is? He doesn't use like I or anything like that. Is that?
It's kind of like that, and also how you don't use like a conjunction. You don't say, "And I've been in meetings all week." You're just like, "This, that."
Oh that, yeah, if you're talking about like the way that I message, sure.
Here it is. When you said you were going to be going to a Trump meeting, you're like, you found. Here, I'll send it to you.
Oh yeah, that shit post.
Trump meeting update. I somehow couldn't find the meeting room and ended up at an art festival instead. I don't know why, but it reminded me so much of this. It doesn't make any sense to me now that I'm actually looking at the tweet that you put out, but for some reason it clicked in my head. I'm just like, this reminds me a lot of Alex.
Oh my god, man. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I do catch myself saying things like that. Like, going from this to that's happening, you know, like, been in meetings all week.
Yeah.
Like, I'll be talking to somebody and I'll say something like, I don't know.
The lack of conjunctions, I don't know, it just seems like something that you do. You don't entirely use like the personal pronouns every once in a while. You just automatically assume everyone knows that you're the one behind everything. I don't know. I just looked at it and I was just like, this is Alex.
That honestly, I've never been like that's never been pointed out to me by somebody else, but I have noticed it sometimes.
Well, but I'm glad that you can agree with me somehow. And then if you want to get back to political things, I have another thing that I would like to pull up. It's a little old, and by old I mean it was 2 weeks ago, so, you know, because that's how information is these days.
All right.
I'll send you the link. We all know what Title IX is, right?
Oh yeah, you're gonna talk about the yeah.
I am going. Title IX. Pretty respectable thing. It gives a little bit more due process to. Yeah, I hate Bustle so much.
It looks like one of those outlets that just does your typical freaking, you know.
It's kind of like The Onion. I can't tell if it's serious or not.
Yeah.
So Title IX, it's a proposal by Betsy DeVos, the Secretary of Education, to try and give those on college campus a little better due process when it comes to rape accusations on campus. So one of the things that she tries to do is she tries to make it so that if a person is accused, that they don't automatically get suspended or their education isn't compromised because of it. Pretty reasonable thing, right? We should be given due process. This whole article, never once do they reference Title IX. They don't even go into it. They never reference one quote from it. They represent...
Serious? Let me see.
Seriously. The only thing that they have quoted is something from... I I think it's Betsy DeVos's quote. She said, one quote that they have in here: "The 2011 and 2014 guideline documents may have been well-intentioned, but those documents have led to the deprivation of rights for many students. Both accused students denied fair process and victims denied an adequate resolution of their complaints. The guidance has not succeeded in providing clarity for educational institutions or in leading institutions to guarantee educational opportunities on the equal basis that Title IX requires. Instead, schools face a confusing and counterproductive set of regulatory mandates, and the object of regulatory compliance has displaced Title IX's goal of educational equality." That's the only thing that they've quoted. Nothing from Betsy DeVos, nothing from Title IX, nothing. This is where I get into the journalistic integrity and what we're trying to do to take it back, to try and hunt for, or search for truth, try to bring about truth through evidence and through facts. In this, they never reference Title IX. And if you're trying to write trying to write something against Title IX, then you should have information saying, this is something, this is my, you start with your thesis, you say, this is what I think, you give the information, you say, this is the stuff that they say, and then you give your counterclaim, you say, this is why I think that this evidence is a bad thing. There's none of that in the structure.
They even teach it, like they teach us that in public school, and yet
they teach you that in public school, funded through Obama. These people, let's see, they probably grew up in what? This is probably millennials writing it, late millennials, I'd say.
Yeah, definitely.
So born 80s, so they were probably counterculture to Reaganism. So they've automatically gone through the idea of saying that, well, since it's a right-wing thing, we automatically don't like it. I'm all for going bipartisan, going for looking at things at face value. That's what I want to do. I want to look at things, how they're presented, make my own decisions off. These people, they aren't showing you, they aren't taking things at face value. They're teaching you how to think. Yep. And that's exactly what we need to get away from. We need to present people with the evidence. We need to present our reasoning, and we don't want to convince people. We don't want to say, this is what you should think. We should say, this is why we think what we think, and this is... you just need to present your evidence. Journalism was never meant to push a narrative. It was supposed to be a presentation of facts and a presentation of reasoning. For you to come to a conclusion of reasoning based on facts that you have acquired. And we have gone so far away from that this article is an epitome of modern journalism. And it's sad. It's a sad reflection on society in America that even with all of the advancements that we've made, that we've gone through anything to get our point across. We've fought wars over it. We've fought so many things just to preserve freedom of speech, freedom of press, freedom of assembly. All of that in the First Amendment, the most important amendment, if I do say so myself. We've fought for all of this, and what do we get out of it? We get poor journalism. People that call themselves journalists that don't deserve the title of it. I walk around, and when people ask me what I do, like if they ask me if I have a job, I say I'm a journalist because I go out and I search for truth. I want to convince people. I want to show people that you don't have to agree with me when you read what I say. You have to go through and you have to look at what I'm presenting to you, and you have to come to your own conclusions. You shouldn't have to. It's a famous saying. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't get the horse to drink. I want to lead you to water, and I want you to make the decision on whether you want to drink or not.
Right.
And now what we've done is we've effectively led the horse to the water, and we've waterboarded it, or shoved its head down into the water and drowned it. That's what we need to get away from. We need to get back into presenting facts, presenting it how it is, and then letting the reader come to the conclusion and not be brainwashed by reading.
Yeah, I'll show you the difference between journalism and just posturing here. All right, here's posturing, and here's just stupid filler. Are you watching the stream here? Look at this.
Yeah, I'm watching the stream.
Look.
It's got the 20-second delay, so you might as well just read out what you got.
I'm just scrolling through. Well, they even numbered it very nicely for us.
Take the country back.
How many of these 24 tweets? What are those even there for? Well, what is the purpose of having 24 tweets being the body of your journalistic piece?
Mm-hmm.
What is this? This is
Also, tweets aren't evidence for anything. Tweets can
exactly
be
that's
a
what I'm
good thing
saying.
to say, oh, this is what multiple people agree with. These are, like, you can use it as support. You can be like, oh, well, my support also comes from people like X, Y, and Z. You don't want to use that as, like, oh, this is my evidence. No, because a tweet isn't evidence. A tweet just says, this person has the same opinion as me. Good for you. What does that add to this? Evidence is looking at title lines saying why it's bad. I could read through this article, which the majority of it is only those tweets. Let's see, how many paragraphs is this article even? Let's see,
Barely anything.
3, 4, 5, 6, and then one of it is a quote. So there's 7 and one is a quote. So it's just stuff to get you to scroll, and it's more than likely just to get you to click on it so they can get paid.
Clickbait. Yeah, that's all it is. It's advertising.
And you and me, Latitude isn't funded. Isn't We don't have any ads on it, right?
No, it's complete. It's like pure
It's
code,
complete.
man. It's just literally bare bones code.
So we're committed to it. We're committed, and that was a thing that we discussed early on. We don't want to get paid from it. We want to, if we're doing a good job, we want to get donations from it. That's it. And also, a majority of the donations are going to be keeping the server up, and that's it.
Exactly. Yeah, it literally just goes towards the monthly Bluehost server, or eventually, if and obviously I should probably write a piece on this or something encouraging the use of Bitcoin, because I think that's the future. But yeah, like donations.
Speaking of Bitcoin,
yeah, that's another thing. Yeah.
That's sad.
But yeah, I mean, looking at these like 24 tweets in here, it's like you have your. I can't even say that the person who wrote this actually has a take on it here, because it's just here's something about Title IX. Like it's like when they say Title IX, they're just pulling something out of their ass. Basically, they're not even saying what it is. It's just like, here it is, guys. This is Title IX. It's like, well, what is it? Like, what are you talking about? Like, you're just saying this is something that does this and this and that. It's like, well, I honestly don't even know what Title IX is, because it's like you're just telling me what it is. It's not even, I don't have anything in front of me. You're not giving me, like you're saying, the quotes, the references, and then all of a sudden it goes into, here's some of what's been going around Twitter thus far. And it's like, okay, so you're not going to give me any of your take, and you're going to give me 24 of other people's takes. And it's almost like, okay, well, is this even your own work, or is this the work of, a bunch of random people? I even searched my @name on Twitter one time, and it came up in this random LGBT publication about Milo Yiannopoulos. And it was just like, it had a random tweet from me in there congratulating Milo on the release of Dangerous or whatever. And it's just like, how did this... I was never informed that this got in there, and they just use it, and it's like, okay, well, thanks for using my take. I guess it supports Milo. That's great.
What you should do is get on stream the author of this piece. Just go up and click on his name and look at some of the headlines. One of the latest articles: how to argue that birth control is a basic human right. Why Trump's birth control rule may not be constitutional. Let's see. This was first one was written 8 hours ago, then 12 hours ago. If you're pumping out an article every 4 hours, then either there's something wrong with your editor, or you're writing too much. You can't be providing enough. You can't be providing information that quickly and verifying it that quickly.
You know what's interesting about that is, John Stossel, right?
Remind me.
He is the libertarian on Fox News who, if you search him, you'll probably know him. He's like a 70-year-old guy who looks like he's 40 years old. Like, never aged. But,
holy crap, he is 70. Wow, he looks like 40.
Yeah. So, other than that, that's the thing that struck me about him, like, yesterday. But, so John Stossel had a Dave Rubin interview, and in that interview, he basically talked about how sorry, something was going on in the background. Okay, so John Stossel in this interview with Dave Rubin talked about how he cranked out maybe maximum of 3 articles per week.
That's a fine number. That's plenty.
Yeah. So, and it's like this is a guy who actually, like, you listen to him and he you know that he's actually doing research. He's researching, he is gathering, information and putting it together in a well documented piece so that people can actually get the full scoop of things, and then maybe there's a small bit of take in there at the end, but it's mostly, and I'll pull up one of his things here because it's interesting, but like, come on, man. This guy, this guy did 5 articles today.
5 articles in one day. Could you imagine that? You must have no life if you do that. And I mean, like, right now, I have, let's see, 1... Nope, yeah, because that's going to sound 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Is that what it is? I have 6 works in progress for Latitude right now. Want to know how long I've been working on those? Let's see.
I know you have.
I've been working on these for, what would you say? How many months? 3 months at least? On each of these? I'm working a ton. I'm working hard on these because it takes a lot to go and research. You have to go and find dictionary definitions. You have to go and you have to find credible sources, but not the credible sources that they tell you in school. Go to CNN. Go to New York Times. That's not the ones that you need to go to. You need to go to ones that are trusted. You need to go to, if you're writing something on statistics, you need to go to Department of Justice, FBI, those kinds of things. You got to go and find those sources, and it takes a while to find those. Now, some people might say, "Well, it's the internet. You can find these anyway, and it'll take you a super short time." Yes, that's true. But to go and compile all of your evidence, to go and say, to make your point, and to make it read well. What was the thing I sent on Twitter in the Latitude chat? Not too, like, probably, what is it, yesterday, about the Bustle editor, or the one. Here, what is this one? Which one is this? All right, here's the quote. Quote, "But it wasn't just Trump playing basketball with paper towel rolls that infuriated people during his Puerto Rico." Unquote. Is your editor just senseless? Do you have an editor? Did you not read through this like 5 times? I've read through every time I write a new word down. I read through it just to make sure it flows well. If you aren't reading through and going through and editing over and over again, what are you doing? And also, a thing that I'm figuring out more and more as I go through Facebook and Twitter and all these social media sites, people only share things based on headlines. And that's all people read is headlines, and they think they have the facts.
Oh yeah, that's well documented. Yeah.
Go, if you see something that strikes your interest, because headlines are supposed to grab your interest. That's the idea, right? When you see a headline, you're supposed to be intrigued by it and want to learn more.
Yeah.
These people have given up on the learning more. Once you see a headline, your next thing should be to go in, read it, look at their sources, and then make your decision after that. Most people have gone completely off the charts with that. They've not gone and said, "Oh, well, yeah, this seems right," or "Yeah, I can see this working." No, they don't do that anymore. And it's sad that people have gotten that lazy. Because how long does it take to read an article?
If you're sitting down, you're ready to read, probably like 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes.
And most articles, they're pretty reasonably length, right?
Yeah, one of my favorites is a whole article that's probably like 10 pages by The Atlantic on ISIS. So it was really, really good. But it's very rare that you see something, as good as that coming out from The Atlantic anymore. So
yeah, right.
I think like one of the best before they went off the deep end with this whole thing was Vice, when they still did really, really decent documentaries. And
Dude,
you
Vice
know,
was me and my dad, we used to watch that, like, let's see, when was I, how old was I in 6th grade? What year was that? What year was it when you were in 7th grade, Alex?
man, 2012.
2012. Yeah, 2012. 2012. Vice, still pretty good. They had a lot of good documentaries. They went out, interviewed a ton of people. It was all really good. Interviewing people about science, interviewing people about, like, cannibalism, interviewing cannibals.
Yeah,
Those things were interesting, and they presented facts. They went and they didn't just ask people, like, basic questions, like, or they didn't go and interview a sex worker and say, "Oh, why'd you become a sex worker?" Nobody wants to know about that. People want to know about things that can apply to them, that are obscure, but not obscure that obscure.
right. Yeah, you
Like,
know,
there's a line that you have to draw at some point, and I'm all for people going and going off the deep end and finding some weird things. That's cool, but think about the general population. Do you think that, and also appealing to younger generations, as more people our age and younger have access to technology, they have access to Snapchat, and Snapchat is trying to use that, uh, use, like, CNN, Daily Mail,
oh yeah,
Vice. They're trying to present that and be like, oh, hey, these are things that you can go and view, and you view them, and then you start getting hypnotized. But you don't see a Fox News one on there. You don't see a Daily Wire one on there. You don't see any smaller. You see Vice and CNN and Daily Mail. That's about it. And Daily Mail had some credibility at some point. Like, Edward Snowden, Daily Mail was who he released all of his information to. And now, if Daily Mail put out something like that, how do you think that they would be believed immediately, or have they lost their journalistic integrity completely?
yeah, exactly. They've wrecked themselves. It's just it's got to be so embarrassing for the people who, let's say, like used to write for them, or of all those publications.
And I feel like there's been this wave, like, in the early 2000s, like, from probably 90s to early 2000s, and maybe even late 2000s. There were really good journalists out there, and then it just plummeted down. Now we have, like, subpar, not even par at that point, just really bad, um, journalists, and it's. I feel like we can start making that uptick back. We can make that upswing back towards, better journalistic integrity, bringing back journalistic integrity, and basically, and it's kind of like how, George W. Bush said when he was interviewed by Wolf Blitzer on CNN not too long ago, when Wolf Blitzer asked him about, what he thought about the press and the negative press that Donald Trump gets. He says, "Well, I mean, when I was president, you guys actually had a lot more power and a lot more respect," and it's true. I
Yeah,
mean,
I remember watching that. That was the look on Don Lemon's face was
was it
just.
Don Lemon?
I think it was Don Lemon.
I don't think. I think it was. I'm pretty sure it was Wolf Blitzer.
You know what? You might. I think you might be right.
I'm pretty sure it was. I'm pretty sure it was. I'm pretty sure that it was Wolf Blitzer. It had to be Wolf Blitzer. I don't care what anyone says. I mean, he might have been my first president in my life, but, George W. Bush, I still, regardless of all the wars that got us involved in, I still like him. I know I'll get crap for that
Oh
someday,
yeah,
but
I.
I
I
mean,
will give you credit.
I still like him. I mean, also, like, the first pitch, the World Series. That's one of the most iconic moments of anyone as a president, when he throws it from the mound, throws a perfect pitch. I mean, that just gets. I mean, he might not have been the best president, but he was my first president. I think he was a pretty good guy. I would love to shake his hand and say, hey, thanks for being my president.
Yeah, I mean, I can't really, I really can't call out Bush for much. I would rather call out all the people who started the Federal Reserve, but
Yeah. Oh wait, it wasn't Wolf Blitzer. It wasn't even CNN. It was on
the Today Show.
Yeah, Today's Show. That's what it was.
It was that one bald-headed guy full of baloney.
No.
Bald-headed baloney salesman.
Right? Do. All right.
Yeah. I mean, what are we? We're running up on like an hour 30 minutes here or something.
Is that? Have we really been
live?
live?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know it's weird when that happens, but what else? I mean,
do we want to get into what is considered a right? Because we kind of touched on it in the beginning, but I mean,
you can go off on all that, man. Do it.
All right. So recently, due to the Las Vegas, what's the technical term? Las Vegas massacre or Las Vegas shooting?
Mass shooting. Yeah.
Las Vegas massacre. What's the kill count up to? 60?
Yeah.
60 dead, 500 injured. Horrible thing. And after that, many people have been going to the NRA, Republicans that are pro-gun, anyone who's pro-gun really. They've said that it is not a right to have a fully automatic weapon. Now, if you understand gun laws at all, or gun licenses, then you would understand that it is very hard to acquire a fully automatic weapon. And to acquire it, you either have to change your semi-automatic weapon to a fully automatic weapon, which is somewhat easy, but it's not widely done. You could get a bump stock, which is used for semi-automatic weapons, right? That's bumps. Yeah, it's used for semi-automatic weapons to try and increase the fire rate. And then there is the to legally acquire a fully automatic rifle, you have to have a third tier gun license, something like that. And it takes a lot of work to get one. Now, the people that legally go through all that trouble, you would think that they should have the right to possess that weapon, right?
All right.
And then there are even people going and saying that semi-automatic weapons and all should be banned, such as like they did in Australia.
Yeah.
And they use it back.
I shared an article that was just most straightforward, objective article from Britain, where obviously handguns are banned and gun crime has gone up 50% over a year. So,
do you want to put that up?
Let me just find it first.
All right. So most people are saying that it's a better idea to get either stricter gun control, get rid of all the guns in general. That's how it is. Now, first, personally, what I need to say is I need to acknowledge my bias. I am a person who is very strongly in support of the Second Amendment, and I think that it doesn't just extend to muskets, as many people have made the argument out to be. I believe that your right to bear arms is probably the second most important amendment next to the First Amendment, because if we can't protect our speech, then what's the point of having it? So, let's think about it objectively. In the United States, how many deaths is it that the United States has related to guns? Firearms.
Deaths. Let me get a number on that real quick. Well, you can actually, because I have my article up here.
Gun violence in the United States results in tens of thousands of deaths and injuries annually. In 2013, there were 73,505 non-fatal firearm injuries per 100,000 U.S. citizens, or 23.2 injuries over 100,000 U.S. citizens, and 33,636 deaths due to injury by firearms. That's 10.6 deaths per 100,000 citizens. So, first, what you have to take into account is 33,636. That's a big number, right? It's a big number. 60% of those suicides.
Yeah. Yeah, I read that statistic. Yeah.
60% are suicides. Roughly, right? Probably not exact, but I mean roughly 60%. And then what is it? Is it 30% that are gun related or illegal firearms?
Illegal firearms are really high up in there. I think they come in second or something like that.
So 60 and 30. So it's 90%, right?
Yeah, and the rest 10% is it's
10% is
right
either
there.
It's either what accidents or protection, that kind of thing. All right, so do you want to get that? So 60%. If 60% is suicides, then what do you think that we should do for those people who are suicidal? You think that we should go and ban guns? Do you think that banning guns is really going to stop a suicidal person from killing themselves?
No, I think we have to focus more on drugs in that case. I think the people who are pushing for drug reform are actually more justified in that case than the people pushing for gun control.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, like, I lived in San Francisco for a few years of my life, and San Francisco Bay, or not San Francisco Bay Bridge, Golden Gate Bridge. That bridge counts for a ton of suicides. If people don't kill themselves with a gun, they'll figure out another way to kill themselves.
Yep.
And then on the subject of illegal firearms, Detroit and Chicago, strictest gun laws in the country, somehow have the highest murder rate in the U.S. Right, 59 people.
Oh yeah.
The amount of people that died in the Las Vegas massacre die a month in Detroit. Strictest gun laws, though. And how are all these deaths coming about? Through firearms. So even if we implement all of these gun laws, people still go around them regardless. And I mean, it's definitely sad. What does it show? That with a disarmed populace, it makes a lot of easy targets. And also, where have most mass shootings taken place? Gun-free zones. The Orlando massacre, gun-free zone. There wasn't an armed populace to protect them. Am I saying that we should arm every single U.S. citizen? No, but am I saying that an armed populace is a much safer populace? I would say so.
Yeah.
Because I would rather have what is it? I would rather have a group of people carrying guns legally for other people's protection than banning guns completely. And also, if you look at people or countries that have banned guns completely, they still have a ton of terrorist attacks.
Oh yeah.
Like
your European nations.
Yeah. Nice, what was that? That was a truck?
Yeah.
London.
Truck of peace.
London massacre?
Yep.
That was a truck and then stabbing spree.
Just attaching explosives to your body.
What was it? The Ariana Grande concert. Just a shrapnel bomb filled with nails and ball bearings. Shred people to pieces. You go and ban You go and ban one weapon. What are people going to do? They're going to find another way to go in. If they're mentally insane, they're going to go and kill a bunch of people. And then people start getting into the idea like, oh, well, Second Amendment wasn't written for AR-15s.
And that's where I've been doing research on all of this, and it's.
Do you think that the founding fathers didn't think that they would advance further than?
I know it's so naive to think that
Like, do I sit here in my seat thinking, man, I love that society and technology will never change from how it is now? No, because I know that that's never going to happen. It's always going to be constantly changing.
Did you think the founding fathers were like, let's look at the idea, because we can apply these amendments or we can apply the principles to every amendment, right? Do you think the founding fathers were sitting there thinking about free speech in the sense of like, oh my god, man, like this is the most free speech we're gonna get, man, like just look at like this is
Yeah.
it's just come on, really. Do you think that here's the funny thing, right? The only people who actually thought like that, like this is the most free speech we're gonna get, were the tyrants.
Uh-huh.
Those were or like this is the most complex weapons the citizenry are gonna get. Those were the tyrants. Those those were not the freedom loving, liberty minded founding fathers who thought that way. The founding fathers actually were the progressives of the time.
Uh-huh.
They in the real sense, like we are going to progress in every different amendment, and like every principle of every amendment. We're going to get better weapons. The citizens are going to get better weapons inevitably. They're going to exercise more free speech because that's why the amendments are there. Because when the government sees that these are going to progress, that people are going to exercise free speech more, that people are going to own more guns, more ammunition, more whatever it is, they're going to go through due process more. They're going to have to, judge their peers more, and they're going to do this and they're going to do that. And they're going to run for office more or whatever. They're going to participate in more democracy. That's exactly what the tyrants fear.
Mm-hmm.
So that is what the founding fathers. That's why the founding fathers knew that they had to be in place, because when the tyrants see that these things are being expanded upon, that creates the impetus for them to begin to regulate. Just why economic freedom, as soon as a bunch of capital is produced from economic freedom, it's the perfect opportunity for tyrants to slam regulation on all on small businesses, on major corporations, on all of them. And that is why that's why we have the amendments, because when a bunch of citizens start getting guns, tyrants are immediately going to jump on them. That's why we have the amendments. That's exactly.
And also the analogy of, oh, well, it was only written for muskets. It goes back to what I said last night. You saw that, right? What I said? With that analogy, freedom of speech, it only extends to a paper and a quill, and speeches with no microphone, and it's not protected on the internet. Or freedom of the press, it only applies to 18th century printing presses. And also, during John Adams' presidency, trade ships, like, they asked trade ships that were coming into the harbors. They asked if they could use cannons to protect their goods against people that might try and steal them, and he said, "Absolutely. Cannons don't exactly fall into the same tier as muskets to me. Those are much larger round if you think about it." But John Adams even said, "Hey, protect your stuff with cannons, dude. Go for it." The Second Amendment applies because it's about what we did in the revolution was to get rid of the tyrannic rule. And Thomas Jefferson's favorite quote, "The tree of liberty must from time to time be refreshed with the blood of patriots and tyrants." One of my favorite quotes. And it shows that he was always accepting of revolution. He thought that a revolution every once in a while was a good idea. And we've been well enough off as a society to realize that our Constitution was written in a great way. Our Bill of Rights were set up in a great way to keep us from revolution. But do I still think that a revolution every once in a while would be a great idea? I'd be all right with it.
Exactly. And it was every once in a while because you couldn't have the fringes always, having revolution.
Uh-huh. And it's a good thing that we have a Bill of Rights, because there were the Federalists that, like Alexander Hamilton, he just assumed that if it wasn't written in the Constitution, then you didn't have the rights. So if we had gone with that, then our rights could have been so easily oppressed, or our basic actions could be so easily trampled upon.
Right.
You and I couldn't even be sitting here having this conversation. So it's the fact that we wrote in that Bill of Rights has saved us so much, and the Bill of Rights, you really got to thank James Madison for it. It's a pretty great thing. And I mean, was there really to add to that? The Bill of Rights has kept us from so many things. It's kept us from tyrannical reign, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I can't believe like the revisionists who, you know, the naivete that, you know, they can sit around and say that, well, they weren't thinking this, they weren't thinking. How do you know what they were thinking?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like you have to look at it from a principled view, not from a I knew what they were thinking view. You know, you can't look at it that way because you're not standing on any evidence then. You know, you have to read what they wrote, and you have to actually understand what these amendments were there for. So what is the history? What can you infer from the history? It's like, okay, so every time that citizens of like, you know, tyrannical empires tried to amass weapons caches or anything like that, or even just privately owned weapons, they were raided by the tyrant's military, and they were, you know, they stole the weapons. The tyrant took the weapons into his own military. Obviously, they were going to just, you know, dispose of them because, oh, we hate guns. No, none of the, no tyrant hates guns. They love them. They just want to steal them from you. So that's, and it's like, okay, so that's the history, right? So it's just like Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, Alexander Hamilton, all of them were sitting there. And why would they have, you know, talked about a Bill of Rights even if they even for a second in their mind thought that tyrants would not steal guns from somebody like who tried to amass a little cache of them? If they thought that tyrants wouldn't do that, you know, and that, you know, citizens would not try, you know, if citizens tried to get more weapons, that somebody wouldn't go in there and steal them all and claim them for, you know, their own military, then they wouldn't have secured those amendments. They wouldn't have done that. You have to look at it from, you know, you have to infer things from a historical, you know, from the actual history. Like freedom of speech, it applies to every single one of those, you know, first 10 amendments. And I can't really see where they're getting this from, that, you know, oh, they had muskets and therefore they could not foresee nuclear bombs.
Have you seen some of the technology that they had in the 1700s though, in the early 1800s? The like 6-shot flintlock pistols.
No, I actually haven't seen those.
Yeah, they're insane. Hold on, I'll find some. They also had like developing Gatling guns, kind of.
Reminds me of BioShock Infinite. I just want to run through this thing real quick here. The gun crime in London increases by 42% in the last year.
Yeah. Go through.
Met Police's figures show there were 2,544 gun crime offenses from April 2016 to April 2017, compared to 1,793 offenses from 2015 until 2016. Knife crime also increased by 24% from 2016 to 2017. The Met also said, The Met said although crime rates were rising, they remained at a much lower level than 5 years ago. Scotland Yard registered annual rises across a number of serious offense categories in the past 12 months, following several years of falls.
Here, hold on, keep doing that. I'm gonna grab the Federalist Papers real fast.
All right. Total number of offenses during the 2016-2017 financial year was 774,737, increase of 4% from the previous year.
All right, I'm
Knife
back.
crime, man. Knife crime. Robbery offenses increased 12%.
Uh,
Obviously, in London, it's a mix of classical open, European open borders and regulating weapons and yeah, you
well,
put those two together and you don't get very nice things.
yeah. So, going back to Second Amendment, Alexander Hamilton, everyone's favorite founding father at the moment, right? Has been quoted as saying in Federalist Papers 28, quote, "If the representatives of the people betray their constituents, there is then no recourse left but in the exertion of that original right of self-defense," unquote. So,
Aha.
for him being a very, very progressive person for the time, still knew that self-defense and regulated militia was the way to go. And Federalist Papers are a good read if you actually care about what was happening during that whole time period.
I think we should
All right.
take a look at the Militia Act also.
Militia Act. When was that? When was that signed? That was a while
That
ago.
was there was Militia Acts of 1792, so that was only
1790s.
5 years after the Constitution was ratified.
That was the beginning of Washington's presidency, right? Or no, that was the end of his presidency. When was Washington president?
Immediately after the Revolutionary War, right?
No, because
No.
the Articles of Confederation. 1789 to 1797.
Okay, so yes, so he was in office during the Militia Acts of 1792, which were a pair of statutes enacted by the Second United States Congress. Uh, the acts provided for the organization of the state militias and provided for the President of the United States to take command of the state militias in times of imminent invasion or insurrection. So the authority was used to suppress the Whiskey Rebellion in 1794. But one must also understand that the the difference, I think we went over this a little bit in the beginning, the difference between the justification clause and the operative clause in the first 10 and in the Bill of Rights, because so the main thing that everybody knows about in each of the amendments is the operative clause, which is the what, basically, like the what of the amendment. So the what for the Second Amendment is the right of the people to keep and bear arms. But many people are coming out right now and taking the justification clause and saying that justification is who it applies
Which is
to.
a well-regulated militia, is
Right.
what people are trying to say.
And
But
that's not
if
who
you
it
look at
applies
it,
to.
all right. So, Second Amendment reads: "A well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed." So, it clearly says, if you know how positives work, a well-regulated militia, then the clarification sentence, being necessary to the security of a free state, then the definition of that, the right of the people to keep and bear arms. Right of the people to keep and bear arms reflects back to a well-regulated militia, saying that the people to keep and bear arms is a well-regulated militia.
Okay, so now go read the First Amendment.
First Amendment. I gotta flip back. Amendment 1. Congress shall not make. No. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or of the right of the people to peaceably, or of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances.
Okay, so when a leftist comes up to you someday and says,
Inevitably.
you are not the press, therefore we can make a law on your speech, Fletcher, because I think it's hate speech. And you're not the press because in the First Amendment it says that, oh well, it's about the press, and you're not the press. Just the same idea as you're not the militia, Fletcher.
No, because it says Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of religion or prohibiting the exercise thereof, then or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press.
Exactly.
That's where I
yeah.
can say that it's constitutionally, it's against the Constitution. It's unconstitutional.
Yep.
Pretty simple. Oh yeah, and going back to freedom of speech, one of George Washington's quotes: "If the freedom of speech is taken away, then dumb and silent we may be led like sheep to the slaughter."
Oh.
I think that he's kind of like a Ayn Rand on that part, making very, very, very good guesses, almost prophet-like, for being, let's see, what, 275? No, 271 years ago. Damn, America's 275 years old.
I think it's almost because those ideas have remained in the minds of humans for millennia, but and I guess they can at times seem prophet-like, but it's always just that everlasting warning of don't don't give too much power to those guys at the top because you're asking for trouble. That's always been the the tested through time statement, I guess, or the time tested statement.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, and I also wanted to show this because it's a picture.
What's it gonna be?
This is what CNN says is the bump stock AR-15.
Bump stock AR-15.
When you see it, you'll it's just a when you see it meme.
A national debt, if it is not excessive, will be to us a national blessing. Man, I wish Alexander Hamilton realized what kind of crap he'd have bestowed upon us with $20 trillion of debt. They seriously think that a silenced rifle
With a grenade
launcher and an ACOG scope on it is there's not even a stock bump on it.
Nope, no bump stock.
Or bump stock.
That, what you see right there is literally something ripped. I can guarantee you something from gunmaker.com or Battlefield 4.
I guarantee. Yeah.
I
100%.
Swear. That it doesn't even. That's not even an AR, dude. That looks like that looks like an M16 or M4.
That'd be an M4, yeah. Seriously, that's what CNN thinks a bump stock is.
Yeah.
No. You dumb.
There you go. Oh man.
See, I might not know a lot about guns, but I know what a bump stock looks like, and yeah, that's not it.
All right, well, we're running up on 2 hours here, so I think that about covers it.
Time to wrap it up.
Yeah, I'm gonna be this thing should have recorded, and I'm gonna post it out on the Latitude website, so it's like the first video article thing.
First discussion on Latitude. I'm alright with that.
Yeah.
And also think of all of the great things that we've discussed that we can put into articles and go even more in depth.
Yep. Exactly.
Hey, I'm happy with what we've accomplished here.
I think next discussion is gonna be on Bitcoin, definitely.
Next discussion on Bitcoin.
Yeah.
How about just currency in general?
Currency, yeah. The Fed, currency, Bitcoin, alternative, yeah, everything.
All right, I can get down on that.
Sounds
when
good.
When should that be?
I don't know. I mean, I can. Let's see. I don't know. Man,
I'm free all this week.
I got to do more research before I jump in on it. I feel like I've still just gotten into it, so.
Well, I mean, I still got a pretty good grasp on the founding of currency and all that. So, I mean, I think I got enough to talk about it.
All right, well, until next time.
Until next time. Thank you all for watching.
Thank you for listening to the Latitude Live first discussion with Latitude Alex and Latitude Arch. Follow us on Twitter at Latitude Arch, at Latitude Alex. Thanks.
Goodbye.